Zaira crouched behind the metal crates, her long purple fingers gripping the edge as she leaned in to listen. The human voices were loud and careless. They didn't know she was there, and if they did, they probably wouldn't care. That's what made them dangerous. That's what her people had always told her. "I'm telling you," one human male laughed, his voice deep and rough. "Human males eat their females, just not in the way you'd think." The other men roared with laughter. Zaira's golden eyes widened in shock. Her hearts beat faster. Eat their females? Did she hear that right? Her species, the Zalari, had always believed humans were strange, wild, unpredictable, and violent. That's why their leaders had warned all young females to stay far away from them. But this was worse than she had imagined. She tapped her small recorder, hiding it in her wristband. The humans continued to talk and laugh, tossing strange jokes back and forth. Their words confused her. Some sounded threatening. Others made no sense. "Yeah, and don't forget the part where they scream, in pleasure," one of them said, laughing harder. Zaira didn't understand. Were they talking about mating, or was it a warning? Either way, she felt cold. She slipped away from the crates quietly and ran back through the dim hallway of the outpost. Later, Zaira stood in front of her squad leader, a tall, silver-skinned Zalari named Commander Vareth. She played the recording back, her voice low and nervous. "They said, they eat their females." "It's true, Commander. They admit it. Listen." The commander raised an eyebrow, then lifted a hand to stop the recording. "You misunderstood. But you misunderstood," he repeated, firmer now. "Human speech is full of deception and coded words. They use jokes to hide their true nature. That's why we don't interact with them beyond orders. Do not speak of this again." Zaira felt her mouth go dry. She wanted answers, but her superior had closed the door. That night, Zaira couldn't sleep. Her thoughts were full of questions. Were the humans hiding something dangerous, or was her own people hiding the truth? She sat on her sleeping mat, staring at her wristband. The recorder blinked softly. She listened to the clip again. "We eat our females." What if he wasn't joking? What if it was a warning? Suddenly, a mission alert beeped across the base. Zaira sat up. "Mixed patrol requested on Jungle Planet X-43. 1 human unit, 1 Zalari unit." Her name flashed on the list, and so did his, Corporal Derek Vance. Human male. Zaira's stomach turned. She was about to meet the human who might be a killer. Or worse. The shuttle hummed as it flew through dark space. Zaira sat across from Derek. He smiled at her the moment she looked up. "Hey," he said casually. "You're Zalari, right?" She nodded, saying nothing. "Never seen one up close before," he continued. "Your people are interesting." Zaira narrowed her eyes. "And dangerous," she replied coldly. Derek raised his eyebrows but didn't argue. He just smiled wider. "I like dangerous," he said. Zaira looked away. The jungle planet loomed ahead. Thick green forests, sharp cliffs, strange wildlife. It was a scouting mission, but now it felt like a trap. They landed, checked gear, and started walking through thick vines and glowing plants. The team leader gave orders and everyone paired up. Zaira and Derek were assigned together. Of course, they moved through the forest in silence. Birds screamed overhead. The ground was soft and wet. Strange creatures scurried through the leaves. Then Derek broke the silence. "So, what do Zalari females think of humans?" She stopped walking and stared at him. "I think," she said slowly, "your kind eats their own females." Derek blinked, then burst out laughing. "You actually believe that?" Zaira frowned. "I heard it. From your mouth." Derek grinned, shaking his head. "You really don't understand human jokes, do you?" Zaira didn't answer. "Well," he said, "don't worry. I won't bite. Not unless you ask nicely." Zaira froze again. Her cheeks turned dark purple. Was that another joke? Or a warning? She didn't know. But one thing was clear. This human wasn't afraid of her, and that made him dangerous in a different way. Zira tried to stay alert. Her eyes scanned the thick green jungle around her. Vines twisted like snakes, and giant flowers opened with sharp teeth. The air was warm and wet. It smelled like life and danger. Beside her, the human named Derek walked with calm steps, humming a tune to himself as if he were on a peaceful stroll. Zira didn't like it. He should have been more serious, more careful. But no. He smiled, too easily, talked too casually, and acted like nothing could hurt him. "Are you always this quiet?" Derek asked, turning his head just enough to look at her with those strange human eyes, blue and clear like frozen water. "I listen before I speak," Zira replied, not looking at him. Derek chuckled. "Smart, but listening too much can drive. You crazy, especially in a jungle like this." Zira didn't answer. She didn't trust him, not after what she heard in the outpost. He had been the one who said that strange thing about eating females. What did he mean by it? Was it a joke, a warning, or something darker? "Still mad about the eating comment, huh?" Derek suddenly said, as if reading her thoughts. Zira stopped walking. Her hand reached for the stun pistol on her belt. Derek raised both hands and laughed softly. "Relax. It was just a human saying. You know, one of those things that doesn't really mean what it sounds like." "That's the problem," Zira said coldly. "You speak in riddles, and you hide the truth in laughter." Derek stepped closer. "Or maybe we laugh to hide how scared we really are." Zira blinked. That she didn't expect. They continued walking, following the glowing map on Derek's wrist screen. The jungle got thicker. Strange noises echoed from the trees. Once, a creature with 8 legs and glowing skin jumped across their path. Zira aimed her weapon, but Derek just smiled and waved it away. "They're harmless," he said. "You're too relaxed," Zira snapped. "And you're too tense," Derek replied. "We balance each other." Zira rolled her eyes. Then it happened. The ground cracked beneath them. Zira didn't even have time to shout before the earth gave way. She fell, landing hard on a slope. Dirt, roots, and rocks rushed past her. Her body tumbled until she hit something solid and blacked out. When she woke, everything hurt. Her arm was bleeding. Her breathing was shaky. She looked up. Above her, light streamed through the hole in the jungle floor, and then a voice. "Hey, you alive down there?" Zira groaned. Unfortunately, a laugh. Then a rope dropped down, beside her. "Grab it, I'll pull you up." She tried. Her arm screamed in pain. "I can't," she said. A moment later, Derek slid down the rope like it was a playground. He landed beside her with a soft thud and knelt down. "Okay, new plan. I'll carry you." Zira frowned. "Don't touch me." Derek gave a smirk. "You'd rather crawl through monster-infested tunnels with a broken arm?" She stared at him, then finally sighed. "Fine, but drop me and I'll end you." "Noted," he said, picking her up gently. His arms were strong. His touch was careful. And for the first time, she didn't feel fear, just confusion. They found shelter in a small cave. Derek made a small fire using his kit. Zira sat near the flames, watching him. He opened a packet of something that looked like dried meat and held it over the heat. Zira's eyes narrowed. "What is that?" "Jerky. Beef. Want some?" "No." He laughed. "Still think I eat females?" Zira said nothing. Then Derek looked serious. "I know your people don't trust us, and I get it. We humans, we've done a lot of dumb things, but we're not monsters." Zira looked at the fire. "Then why joke like that?" "Because that's how we deal with fear. Humor is our armor, especially when we're far from home." Zira didn't speak for a while. Then she whispered, "I was told you're dangerous." "I am," he replied softly, "but not in the way you think." As the fire crackled and the jungle outside grew darker, Zira watched the human. He smiled, too easily. He spoke too much. But he'd carried her. He'd protected her. And now, he was sitting in the dirt beside her, sharing warmth like a friend. Maybe, just maybe, there was more to humans than danger. Maybe what she feared was only the beginning of something new. The fire flickered low inside the cave. Outside, the alien jungle whispered with strange calls, high-pitched screeches, distant howls, and the fluttering of wings that didn't belong to any earth creature. Zira sat with her back against the stone wall, cradling her injured arm. Her eyes stayed on the flames, but her thoughts were all on the human. Derek. He was leaning against the other wall, sharpening a small blade with a stone, completely at ease in the unknown. His relaxed movements irritated her. Humans were supposed to be wild, unpredictable, maybe even dangerous. But so far all Derek had done was save her, feed her, and talk like. He enjoyed her company. Zira hated how unsure she felt. The cave trembled slightly, not from an earthquake, but from the weight of something large passing outside. Zira's head snapped toward the entrance. Derek looked up too, eyes calm but alert. He raised a finger slowly. Don't move. It's a Kraken beast. They're blind, but they can smell blood. Zira's breath caught. Blood. Her arm. Derek stood, crossed the cave silently and knelt beside her. He opened his med pack and whispered, I need to clean the wound. Fast, before it picks up your scent. Zira tensed as he tore open a sterilizing wipe. You trust me, right? He asked softly. She didn't answer, but she didn't pull away, either. The moment his fingers touched her skin, Zira flinched, but not from pain. His hands were warm, gentle, careful. His eyes never wandered. His voice stayed calm. For someone so dangerous looking, he was surprisingly soft. There, he whispered, wrapping her arm. You're good now. Zira looked at him. For a moment, their faces were close. Too close. Her mind raced. This human, he was nothing like the stories, and yet something about him still felt dangerous. Not like a killer, but like someone who could change her forever. Hours passed. The Kraken beast moved on. The jungle quieted. Derek offered her a water flask. She took it without speaking. Then he sat back down, resting his arms behind his head, staring up at the cave ceiling. So, he said casually, what does Zilari do for fun? Zira raised an eyebrow. Fun? Yeah, laughing, dancing, eating weird food. She shook her head. We train, we serve, we survive. That is enough. Derek chuckled. Man, you guys need a vacation. Zira looked at him, puzzled. What is vacation? It's when you stop surviving and start living. His words echoed in her chest. Start living. Was that what he was doing? Even in danger, he laughed. Even when wounded, he smiled. Zira found herself studying him more carefully now. The way his eyes sparkled when he joked. The way his voice softened when he spoke to her. The way he looked at her like she was more than just another alien soldier. Then, he said something that made her freeze. I heard you earlier, about what you think humans do to females. Zira stiffened. You were not supposed to hear that. I did, he said. And I just want you to know. Yeah, humans can be animals, but not that kind of animal. She narrowed her eyes. Then what kind are you? He turned to face her fully now. His voice was quiet but serious. The kind who loves deeply, fights hard, and would die for someone they care about. Zira stared at him. He didn't blink. Didn't smile this time, and for the first time since they met, she believed him. Later that night, Zira lay awake on her mat made of jungle leaves. Derek slept near the fire, his body relaxed. She turned her head and watched him. Why did her heart beat faster now? Was it fear? or something else. Her training had never prepared her for this. Not for a human who spoke in riddles. Not for a human who risked his life to save hers. And definitely not for the strange warmth she felt in her chest whenever he looked at her. Zira didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but tonight, she was no longer certain who the real danger was, the jungle outside, or the human inside this cave, who smiled too easily, and was slowly changing her world. Zira was quiet the next morning. The jungle mist floated low, curling around their feet as they walked between giant roots and glowing mushrooms. Strange birds flew overhead, crying out in musical tones. But inside Zira, a different storm was growing. She couldn't forget the night in the cave. The way Derek had touched her gently. The way he looked at her. Not like an enemy, not like a soldier, but like someone who saw her as a person. And worse, she couldn't forget the heat in her chest when he smiled. "You've been quiet again," Derek said, casually stepping over a root. "Is that your natural state? Or am I just bad company?" Zira blinked, pulled from her thoughts. "You talk too much. It fills the silence with confusion." He laughed. "We humans are good at that. Confusion is part of the charm." Zira rolled her eyes but couldn't stop the small twitch at the corner of her mouth. Derek noticed. Was that a smile? No. Sure looked like one. Zira turned her head. Maybe it was disgust. Even better, Derek grinned. Progress. They found a small waterfall and took a break. Derek sat down on a moss-covered rock and reached into his pack. "You hungry?" Zira shrugged. He handed her a protein bar, but as she reached for it, their fingers brushed. Zira froze. And suddenly, a strange device on her wrist beeped. She looked down. The mate bond alert, a biosensor used by her species to detect compatible partners, was glowing a soft green. Her heart skipped. No, it couldn't be. She pulled her hand back instantly and stood up. "What's wrong?" Derek asked, confused. "Don't touch me," she said sharply. Okay, sorry." He raised both hands. "Didn't mean to freak you out." Zira turned, away, breathing fast. She clutched her wrist, trying to hide the glowing indicator. A human, triggering her bond device impossible, unacceptable. Back at camp, she stayed distant. She barely spoke. Derek noticed but didn't push her. He just sat near the fire again, sharpening his blade like always. Then, without looking up, he said, "So, about that joke." Zira glanced at him. He continued, "The one about eating females." Zira clenched her jaw. "You really want to know what it means?" he asked. Zira hesitated, then gave a small nod. Derek sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. "All right. In human culture, the word eat has more than one meaning. Sometimes it's a joke, a private joke." "Explain," she said sternly. He leaned forward, his voice lower now. "In human intimacy between people who are very close, it's a way to say, we please our partners. With our mouths." Zira's face turned bright purple. She stood up quickly. "That's disgusting." Derek shrugged. "Some people think it's romantic. You insulted me. I didn't mean to, it's just cultural." "You wouldn't understand unless I what?" she snapped. "Fall into your trap? Become your next meal?" Derek's expression changed. Hurt flickered in his eyes. "You really think that low of me?" he asked quietly. Zira didn't respond. She turned and walked into the trees. Alone in the jungle, she sat on a stone and held her wrist. The green glow had faded now, but the warmth in her chest hadn't. She was confused. Was it possible that her people had misunderstood, humans all along? Had she misunderstood him? He hadn't tried to trick her. He didn't force anything. He explained, even though it embarrassed him, and he looked sad when she accused him. Maybe he wasn't the monster she feared. Maybe he was something far more dangerous. A good man. When she returned to camp, the fire was dying. Derek was sitting with his head low. Zira stood quietly for a moment. "I'm sorry," she said. He looked up, surprised. "I judged you unfairly," she continued. "Your words confused me, but I was also scared." Derek smiled softly. "I scare a lot of people, but you're the first to admit it." She walked over and sat beside him. "I understand now," she whispered. "Humans say strange things, but sometimes they mean well." Derek nodded. "And sometimes we feel things we can't say properly." Zira looked at him. "Like this?" Their fingers touched again. No alarm this time, just silence and warmth. Zira had never invited anyone to the ritual of trust before, not even those from her own species. Now she was guiding a human, Derek, through the glowing forest of her ancestors. It felt wrong. It felt strange. And yet, it felt right. Above them, giant leaves shimmered with soft blue light. Below, the ground lit up with every step like the planet itself was watching. Derek walked beside her in silence, respecting the weight in the air. He didn't smile, didn't joke. For once, he understood the moment was sacred. Zira was grateful for that. "You still sure you want to do this?" she asked without looking at him. Derek nodded. "If it means I understand you better?" "Yes." She stopped. "Once the ritual starts," she said slowly, "there's no pretending, no lies. Our thoughts, fears, and desires become visible. We share a mental link, just for a few minutes, but it feels like a lifetime." Derek looked at her seriously. "I want that, even if it scares me." Zira finally turned to face him. "Then, remove your gloves. And kneel." They stood before a stone altar surrounded by floating crystals. The energy here was old, ancient, powerful. Zira placed her palm on the stone. It glowed purple. She motioned for Derek to place his hand beside hers. He did. The light turned gold. The bond began. In a flash, they weren't in the jungle anymore. They were floating in a vast space of light and memory. Zira gasped. She wasn't just seeing Derek's face now, she was inside his mind. She saw his childhood, his pain, the fear of never being good enough, the loss of his brother, the laughter he used as a shield, the jokes he told to hide the ache in his chest, and most of all, his loneliness. He walked alone through life, smiling, so no one would ask what was hurting him. Zira's heart ached. Then Derek saw her training, her fear, the way she never cried, even when she wanted to, the way her people expected perfection, the way she was never allowed to be soft. He saw how much pressure she carried, how badly she wanted to be seen not as a soldier, but as a person. They stared at each other in that space of truth. No words, just feeling. When the ritual ended, both of them were breathless. Zira stumbled back. Derek caught her without thinking. "I saw everything," she whispered. He nodded. "Me too, me." Zira's eyes filled with something she didn't recognize at first. Tears. Real tears. Derek smiled gently. "You don't have to hide anymore." She looked up at him. "You're not what I expected, Derek. And you're more than I ever imagined," he said softly. Then he added, "I don't want to just understand you, Zira. I want to stay close to you, if you'll let me." Zira looked down at their hands. She slowly reached out, lacing her fingers with his, and her mate bond device didn't beep. It glowed, warm and golden, stronger than before. "I don't know where this path goes," Zira said, her voice trembling slightly. "But if you walk it, I'll walk it with you." Derek chuckled. "As long as it doesn't involve me being eaten, I'm in." She smacked his arm lightly. "You ruined the moment again." "Habit," he said with a grin. But then his voice turned serious. "Thank you for trusting me. That means more than you know." Zira nodded. She had trusted him with her thoughts, her fears, her truth, and somehow, he'd done the same. That night back at camp, they sat side by side near the fire again, but this time, no tension, no fear, only peace, only the quiet beginning of something real. Zira stood in front of the hologram, her hands clenched behind her back. Commander Vareth's image flickered in front of her, tall, sharp, cold. His silver eyes stared through her like ice. "You completed the bonding ritual," he said flatly. "With a human." Zira didn't speak. "You disobeyed protocol. The Zalari High Council will not ignore this." Still, she stayed silent. "Speak," he snapped. Zira lifted her chin. "I chose to understand him. I chose truth over fear. Commander." Vareth leaned forward. "You chose weakness." Zira's heart ached, but she didn't let it show. "No, I chose connection. Isn't that why we made contact with humans in the first place?" "The human corrupted your thoughts," he said, voice low. "You will return to base immediately. Your bond will be purged." Her eyes widened. "Purged?" He nodded. "It's not too late to undo this mistake." Zira took a deep breath. "It's not a mistake." And with that, she ended the call. Derek was waiting outside the ship. His back was against a tree, arms crossed, face calm. But his eyes betrayed worry. "They contacted you, didn't they?" Zira nodded slowly. "What did they say?" She paused. "They want me to leave you." Derek's jaw tightened. "And if I don't?" "They'll erase the bond." He looked away for a moment, then asked, "What do you want?" Zira stepped closer. "I don't know." Derek nodded, not angry, not sad, just quiet. Then he whispered, "If I asked you to stay, would that be selfish?" Zira blinked. "Why would you say that?" "Because maybe you belong somewhere brighter, safer, somewhere without a human messing up your perfect life." Zira grabbed his wrist, firm but gentle. "You don't understand," she said. "You didn't mess up anything. You woke me up." That night, Zira sat alone by the fire. The jungle around her pulsed with sound, but her heart was heavier than ever. Her whole life had been built on rules, orders, duty. Her identity was tied to her species, her role, her training, and now she was thinking like a human, feeling like one. She was in love. But love, for her kind, came with a cost she wasn't sure she was ready to pay. In the early morning, she went to Derek. He was sitting near the river, staring at the moving water. "I've made my decision," she said. He didn't look at her. "Let me guess, you're going back." "No." Now he turned, surprised. "I'm not going anywhere," Zira said. "They can erase my bond, but they can't erase what I feel." Derek stood slowly. "Are you sure?" "No," she admitted. "But if I walk away now, I'll never know what we could have been." He stepped closer, gently placing his hand on her cheek. "You're brave," he whispered. "No," she said, leaning into his touch. "I'm finally free." But far above them, on the orbiting Zalari ship, red lights were flashing. "Commander," Vareth stared at Zira's last transmission. He turned to his officer. "Send the retrieval unit," he ordered. "She's gone too far." Derek woke up to the sound of thrusters rumbling in the distance. The sky above the jungle glowed faintly red, Zalari ships. He rushed out of the tent, boots hitting damp ground, heart racing. Zira was already outside, staring at the sky with a storm in her eyes. "They sent a retrieval unit," she said softly. "Just like they promised." Derek's fists clenched. "Then let's run." Zira shook her head. "They'll find us, no matter where we hide." "So what do we do?" She looked at him and smiled. "We stop running." 10 minutes later, the Zalari retrieval squad landed, sleek armor, glowing visors, silent steps. They moved like shadows through the trees, surrounding the human-alien camp with cold precision. Commander Vareth stepped forward. Zyra of Clan Vane, you are ordered to return for correction. Zyra stood tall. I refuse. You've been corrupted. That human, he pointed toward Derek, has made you forget who you are. Zyra stepped between them. No. He reminded me of who I could be. Someone who feels. Someone who chooses. Vareth's face remained stone. Then you are no longer Zalari. Zyra's breath caught. Then she said, so be it. The commander raised a hand. Take her. Derek moved instinctively. You're not touching her. But Zyra stopped him. No, let me finish this. She stepped forward, pulling a small glowing device from her pouch, a bond crystal only given during sacred connections. She crushed it in her hand. The golden energy spread through the air like stardust. Your rules don't bind me, she said. Your traditions no longer hold me. Commander Vareth stared, expression unreadable. Then he turned away. Withdraw, he ordered. The squad hesitated. I said, withdraw. Within moments, the ships lifted into the sky and the jungle fell silent once more. Later that evening, Zyra and Derek sat beside a quiet fire under alien stars. For the first time in days, there was no fear, just silence and peace. Derek reached into his pack and pulled out a small silver wrapper. What's that? Zyra asked, tilting her head. Earth food, he grinned. Try it. She unwrapped the strange item and took a cautious bite. Her eyes widened. It's sweet, soft, warm inside. Chocolate lava cake, Derek said proudly. My favorite. Zyra took another bite, then smiled for real. I always thought humans were dangerous. We are. Derek smirked. Especially when it comes to desserts. She laughed, something rare and real. Then she looked at him with soft, serious eyes. You didn't eat me, she said. Derek laughed. Of course not. You fed me instead. Guess I flipped the myth. No, she said, leaning into him. You changed it. In a jungle where nothing was ever safe, they found something unexpected. Not just survival, but love and the sweet taste of something new.